Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, December 9th, and I'm Charlie Bengel.
And I'm Eyerusalem, Meaza. Grab a cup of coffee and let's make your real estate career better.
What's in the news today, Eyerusalem?
In this morning headlines, faced with more expensive home prices, home buyers are bringing more money to closing. The median down payment on a single-family home and condo purchased in the third quarter increased by nearly 67% compared to a year ago. Median down payments are at the highest level recorded since at least 2000. According to a new analysis from Atom Data Solutions, a real estate data firm, the median down payment of $20,775 was 6.6% of the median sales price for homes purchased with financing in the third quarter. The median loan amount was $275,500, the highest level since 2000. And the following are some metros who have the highest median down payments in the third quarter. So I've selected a couple. San Francisco, Oakland, Hayward, California, $243,000. Boulder, Colorado, $123,600. And another one I selected was Boston, Cambridge, Newton, Massachusetts, $76,000. Down payments can be among home buyers' chief obstacle to achieving home ownership. The Federal Housing Administration offers loans with lower down payment requirements catered to first-time home buyers. Mortgages backed by FHA comprise 10.3% of all residential property loans originated in the third quarter. Next, more than 40% of companies' CEOs believe business conditions will recover to pre-pandemic levels in 2021, according to a new quarterly survey from the Business Roundtable. The CEOs of the nation's largest companies, which employ some 15 million people, expect their firms to hire more employees and invest more over the next 6 months. The CEOs expect the economy to grow at a 1.9% annual rate in 2021, an improvement over a negative growth rate expected this year due to the pandemic. CEOs are optimistic about sales growth and capital spending in the new year. The upbeat survey comes shortly after a report that showed the pace of job growth more muted in November. Economists have expressed concern that those numbers could worsen over the next 2 months as the COVID-19 outbreak continues to spread. Lawrence Yun, NAR's chief economist, said in a statement regarding the latest employment numbers that the housing market has been soaring despite the subdued job market due to the record low mortgage rates. However, the rates will not fall further, so the jobs recovery becomes even more important to sustain home buying. Jobs are also critical for commercial real estate as well. In other news, the housing market expected to be the strongest in 2021 are tech hubs with strong job creation, state capitals where home shoppers may get more square footage for their money, and smaller cities with greater affordability, according to a new analysis from Realtor.com. But none of those areas boast the cheapest home prices in the nation. In most of them, buyers will pay more than the national median home price of $348,000. Realtor.com notes the housing markets in tech towns are thriving because that industry is doing well, says Daniel Hale, Realtor.com's chief economist. The housing markets identified on Realtor.com's list are expected to experience higher price growth and more sales than other markets across the country. Median list prices are expected to increase 6.9% in these markets compared to 5.7% nationwide. Home sales in these areas are also expected to jump 13.1% compared to 7% nationally. To develop the list, Realtor.com researchers factored in past sales prices and the number of sales, rate of new construction, and previous and anticipated economic household and income growth. They tracked 100 of the largest metro areas in their study. Some of the metros predicted by Realtor.com to outperform Sacramento, California, San Jose, California, Charlottesville, North Carolina, Seattle, Phoenix, and the list goes on. Charlie, what's going on with rates?
Thanks, Eyerusalem. Rates have stayed about the same with the 30-year fixed rate at 2 3/4, as is the 30-year jumbo rate at 2 3/4. FHA 2.5 and VA 2.75. These are purchase rates in the DC metro market brought to us by PNC Mortgage. Back over to you to discuss the market.
In the last week in Hampton Roads, we saw 430 new listings. hit the market, 570 properties go pending, and 574 properties sold. In the last week in the Washington metro area, within 30 miles of the White House, we saw 1,038 new listings hit the market, 1,494 go pending, and 1,314 homes sold. Back over to Charlie with our special guest.
It's my pleasure to welcome back to the show Coach Amy Lassen. Amy, good to see you.
Hello, good morning. I guess it wouldn't necessarily be morning if people are watching this later.
Yes, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Today we are going to be discussing business planning and how your business plan is like building a custom house.
I think so.
That sounds a little bit more exciting to me than a business plan. So tell me a little bit about how business planning is like building a custom house.
Well, so I think a lot of us have issues, and Charlie, you and I taught business planning yesterday. So, we've been in front of a big room full of agents just even recently. And I think a lot of agents struggle. I took a poll in that class and said, how many of you followed a business plan last year? And I think we did not have a single hand, right?
Yep.
So, and this was not all newbies, right? We had experienced agents. So I think there are reasons that agents don't follow business plans. And so I thought a lot about this. I did some research on what are best practices for business planning and actually having your plan have value to you. And I thought of a custom home, and I thought that this would be a good analogy for explaining to agents the difference between a plan that would actually help you and the plan you may have now. So I think the plan that most agents have now is maybe it's a template that they downloaded. Or maybe a coach or a trainer or a broker said, here's how you do business planning, okay? So you followed someone else's template, you were a little confused, you filled it in, it's not super meaningful to you, right? Like I think a lot of them walk away going, okay, and then they think they're done, right? I'm done, I did it. Well, if you don't understand it, then it's not your plan. And so the comparison to building a custom home is this. If you walked into, say, a production builder's office and you're a consumer and you decide you're going to buy a home and you choose the floor plan, you even choose the elevation, right? You can go to the design center. Like we're getting specific here, right? We know exactly the exterior. We've picked out the light fixtures. That is not a blueprint. We can't turn that over to the general contractor and get the darn thing built based on those specs, right? Now we need a blueprint, an actual blueprint, which an architect is going to draft. And this thing is involved, right? Many, many, many pages of schematics for every single component. I realized this morning, Charlie, before the show, there's a third thing that even the blueprint doesn't have.
Okay.
And that is instructions to somebody on how to be a plumber. Nowhere in there does it teach you how to do plumbing.
Right.
So you and I, we coach people, we train people, we have people show up to us who actually don't know how to do the thing that they want to set as a goal. True. So I choose geographic farming. I choose to go after expireds or out of area owners in 2021. Great. I'm never going to say you're not allowed to choose something that you don't already know how to do. But part of your plan has to be learning to do it. So I think this is the reason a lot of people fail with their business plan. They use a template that they're not familiar with. They fill in the things that the trainer told them to. They're not feeling very connected to it, and they don't now have a plan of action for following through either on the actions that they outlined or the things that they need to learn in order to take action. So you and I talked yesterday about once your plan is done, what are the habits that you could put in place to make it valuable? And I think one of them is putting deadlines for each thing and resources for training. So what do you think about my new aha about the layers there between specs, blueprint, and then learning the trade?
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. There are so many agents that choose lead sources because they've heard about them. But like you said, they've not been trained on them, and they don't know. When you hear about them and you want to do it, it's because you've heard the successes. I want to start a geofarm because so-and-so is killing it with geofarming.
Yeah.
Right. They don't hear about, well, that agent's been geofarming for 20 years. Right. And they go to community events and they sponsor the neighborhood parade and they do door drops and they door knock. It's not just going to, it's not just sending out a postcard every quarter.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot more to it. So, I think that that's a piece that a lot of agents don't realize is each lead source for most agents is going to take some training.
Yeah.
And like we talked about yesterday in business planning, I think that you encourage them to pick one per quarter, right, to really master before they move on to the next one. And we've talked so many times before about, having 4 lead sources at a level 10 instead of 10 lead sources at a level 4, because then they end up failing. And then they're, the same person that wanted to do farming is like, well, farming doesn't work.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
then you ask them, well, what'd you do? Well, I sent it out just listed and just sold cards. Well, that's not really farming though, right? Because when you sold these houses, they were scattered all over the city, right? Well, yeah, they weren't in one neighborhood. No, they weren't in one neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that's not really geo-farming, right? That's different. Right. And can it work? Sure, but it's different.
Yes.
So no, and then, it's not just the training, but it's that accountability piece like we've been talking about as well.
Yeah.
And you had said, review your business plan every day for what? 30 days? Right, to really get it ingrained in you. And we've heard this before. There was what is his name? His last name is McCutcheon. Tony Robbins' sidekick.
Oh, it's not McCutcheon, it's McClendon.
Thank you, Joseph McClendon. Right.
Yes.
He talks about having a vision.
Yeah.
And saying your vision out loud every hour for, is it a week? I think it's a week.
Yeah.
For 7 days.
Right.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every hour that you are awake, you're going to recite this vision. And the idea is it gets ingrained into you. So I think that this is a hybrid of that in a way, reading your business plan every day for a month.
Right.
And then it still doesn't go in the virtual or, the physical filing cabinet, right? You need to be reviewing it regularly, and hopefully you have other people that are helping to hold you accountable to this.
Right. Well, and to be clear, for those who may have panicked when they heard Charlie say that I recommend reading your plan every day, if you're not familiar with your plan, you need it. So read it every day until you have the darn thing memorized.
Right.
Like, if you're on day 16 and you know the thing by heart, then you're not required to read it every day. But I would say bring it out every single week during your CEO time.
Sure.
And then at some point, it can just be a monthly visit with the plan. I think another challenge with most people's plans, Charlie, is it's not actionable.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you look at other types of business planning online, I think a lot of realtors, they stay in their real estate world. So whatever your brokerage offered or whatever sort of training organization you participate with, they have a module and you follow it. If you just Google business planning and you figure out how other people do business planning, it will say you've got to assign all the tasks to all the staff. You have to have weekly follow-ups on the bigger, and it's like, most of us are solopreneurs.
Right.
It's like, I don't have a massive staff to dictate stuff to. I just have me.
Yep.
So then we take it less seriously. Well, it doesn't matter. All the things have to get assigned to somebody. And even though it's just you've still got to do it. So that's the reason monthly should be adequate, but that's only if you've outlined tasks and they're assigned somewhere. Right.
Yeah, and then tracking somewhere. Right, tracking so you can do the reviews during your CEO time, even if it's quarterly, right? So the plan's in front of you, but then quarterly it's, okay, how many deals did I get from Sphere? How many should I have gotten from Sphere?
Yes.
Is it working really well?
Yes.
And if so, is it something that I can do maybe for other people? Can I replicate what I'm doing with another group? If it's not working really well, is it me? Is it them? Do I need to find more people? Do I need to do more? Probably need to do more, right? But I think that that's so important because oftentimes when we do these reviews with our clients, we see that there are some things that are working better. So let's say at Zillow, you're killing it with Zillow. Well, does it make sense to add more money to Zillow then?
Sure.
For some people, the answer might be yes. For others, it might be no. But the number of people, Amy, that I have had come to me or to put on their call sheet this year, cancel Zillow. And then we do the math.
Right.
You don't want to cancel Zillow, right?
Right.
Love them or hate them, right? This is not a discussion about where Zillow's going and all that, but you're making money from Zillow, but it doesn't feel right. It feels like, well, all these leads haven't been good. And it's like, well, your ROI is like 8 times.
Yes.
Where are you going to replace that income if you were to cancel Zillow?
Yes.
And these agents, they're not analytical. They just, everything's a feeling. I feel like I should do this. I feel like I should do that. And, you do the math. And so I'm saying, do the math once a quarter. Look at all of the lead sources, right? What's worked, what's not. And it's often us. If it's not working, it's us, right? We didn't do what we said we would do, whatever. But I just think that it's so important to be able to do that quarterly review,
Yes.
and then tweak the plan a little bit,
Yes. Well,
None of this is set in stone.
That aligns with focusing on becoming really strong in 4 areas.
Right.
So quarterly review aligns with that. So the thing that I ask the people that I coach is, if you are on the quarter that is your sphere of influence mastery, right? You're mastering your sphere of influence plan in the first quarter of the year. That doesn't mean that's just all we ever get to talk about. That means between our calls, you are Googling it. You are finding it. You are making it better. You are learning what other people do that you could adopt, right? So I ask for an obsessive focus with the 4 sources of business that you choose that makes you better, right? I think a lot of agents don't understand. Like you said, the one who's crushing it with farming has been doing it a long time, but that's not all. Like, there is a detail to what they do. There is a quality to what they do. So people who crush it with open houses don't get lucky.
Right.
They have a process that they follow. And so if you would commit to figuring out what would it take to be the best at X, to be extraordinary at X, and then every single week you learn one more thing, that's easily 12 things that you could learn to grow in that one thing. And then you're at the quarterly review point to say, how is it working? What do I need to shift? Is it time to transition my focus to another skill building module, right? So, but back to habits. So that's kind of big picture. I feel like agents hear that and they go, yeah. But that doesn't work into kind of a weekly rhythm. And I think one of the most important things is that we develop rhythm. Like, that's one of the biggest problems, is I think they don't have it in their habit. Right.
Well, I would agree. Yeah.
So how can you create habits from this plan that you've written?
Well, I think you got to schedule them. I'm an advocate for this Monday morning map out, whether it's Monday morning or Sunday evening, and plotting out your week, figuring out your week. And it's probably going to be similar to last week, but not exact. I'm not real big on the exact same schedule every day, right?
Yeah.
Or the exact same schedule every week. But by Sunday night or Monday morning, you have a pretty good idea what your week's going to look like. And then you can slot in the CEO time, the learning time, the hour of power, all of this stuff. And I think you just need to have a list every week of the non-negotiables, the stuff that has to go in the schedule. But it doesn't have to be every Tuesday at 9 a.m. because you may have a closing on Tuesday at 9 a.m.
Sure.
You don't just cross that off for the week. You still want to get to it.
Yeah.
So, I think, working by a schedule is important. And that's not, I'm also not an advocate of, because I know there's some coaches where it's like, send me your daily schedule. And it's like, I don't think that works that well. It causes stress.
Sure.
I'm also an advocate of white space. Every minute should not be scheduled, because then if something goes long, or if the closing gets pushed, or the home inspection takes longer than is expected, there's a lot of stress. Right. So I think it comes down to scheduling, and just a little hack. When you do this, you have to schedule your travel time. I was looking at somebody's calendar last week, and he had these appointments, and they were back to back. And I said, so does the appointment, does that include the travel time? And he said, well, no. I said, well, then how does this work? Right. And it's, some of us use Calendly, right, to allow people to book appointments in our calendar. And I learned this the hard way. If I've got dentist from noon to 1, somebody can go in, and that's when my appointment is. It's at noon. I need to be there.
Right.
Well, Calendly, I could have somebody book 11 to 12.
Yep.
And then what do? You're stuck. So, get good with the calendar, whether you use Calendly or not. Pretend like you are, because it requires discipline, right? If you start using Calendly, you have to be disciplined with your calendar.
That's true.
Right? So otherwise people will book when you don't want them to book. Yeah. So, I think part of this scheduling these habits, right, is also making sure that we're giving time for all of our appointments.
Right.
And otherwise you're going to, have to be in 2 places at once. And that's not what we want. And we don't want you making your hour of power calls from the car. Somebody suggested that this morning. Right. Well, I could do my hour of power calls as I'm driving to my Popeyes. You could, right? And this is an agent, who struggled with making her calls. She's gotten much better at it, right? She's made great strides with this. But I said, how are you going to take good notes? Right. I mean, and frankly, I think we've all been in situations where we've been on the phone and we arrive at our destination without even thinking when we're in the car because we were so engrossed in the phone call,
Yep.
that's probably not the safest way to go about our day, right?
Yeah.
So, there are many reasons why it's ideally we're in our office, home, or our, real estate office, doesn't matter, but in front of our computer with the CRM open, we can take our notes, right? So that's another little, hack, I think. So this all comes down to habits, and I know we're getting a little off track of the of the business plan, but these are all daily habits that are important.
Yes.
And making calls when you remember somebody, right? I mean, you're driving by and you see Michael's over there and you're like, I haven't talked to Michael Brown recently, I'm going to give him a call. Right? Your whole business is not just, we don't want it to be run on memory.
No.
Right? So it's scheduling, it's the habits, and so that's my very long answer to, how do you create habits? I think you have to schedule them.
True, but I think there's a step in between that we skipped, which is, what are these things that you're scheduling? Because I think this is the whole, I chose the elevation. When's my house done? Like, all of the how it will get built in between is missing for most agents.
Yes.
So that's the reason I recommend, let's say you picked these 4 sources. Sphere of influence. At a really high level, you're going to learn to do a much better job of nurturing your sphere of influence. You're going to figure out how to do open houses way better. You're going to, my favorite, listing leverage, and then let's say geographic farming. Okay. Those are our 4 for 2021. I really do recommend that you pick one at a time to get good at it. If you are not currently getting 10% of the people who know, like, and trust you to refer you, and if you have not grown that list of people to include all the people you know who know you. So these are the 2 basics, right? So you could have a list of 200 names and 10% of them could be referring you. That's 20 transactions. So if that's not happening, we don't need to be simultaneously launching a farm and figuring out of area owners and dabbling in FSBOs. Right. So let's say, okay, sphere of influence marketing is my Q1, my first quarter focus. Great. Show me the plan. Well, I'm going to mail monthly, or I'm going to email a newsletter every single month. Remax Allegiance has that service. I'm going to email a newsletter every single month. I'm going to call every single quarter. I'm going to put them in my birthday club, and I'm going to honor these crazy holidays. Groundhog Day, I don't know. Like, you figure it out. And then, the end of December, you sit down with your plan and you see what's in there for January, and now you have your marching orders. Well, I have to make this many calls. I'm going to do this many home value reports. I'm going to send this many birthday acknowledgments. I'm going to whatever. Because there's to-dos, right? Rather than have all of January go by and just say to yourself or your broker or whomever, I guess I haven't done anything yet. Well, that's not a blueprint. So I think we cannot develop habits around actions that we don't know what the actions are. So that was a very concrete example of one pillar. Okay. So now we get to Q2 and you've got to look at your second pillar. What is it? Right. So let's say it's geographic farming. You have to do the analysis. How many homes? What's the turnover rate? Average price, average days on market, competition. You do the analysis, you come up with a marketing plan, you write down a budget, and your eyes may be crossing right now, but I want you to understand this is the specificity that's necessary, and you can do it. One word at a time, one step at a time, you can figure this out and you can build it, but you can't build a custom home without this level of specificity, and you can't run a business successfully without it either. You can do the wing and a prayer. You can just be charming and post on social and hope people call you, but that's waiting for it to rain. That's not very much control over the faucet, which is the lead.
It's like going to Vegas and rolling the dice. Maybe I'll have a good year next year. Maybe I won't, right? So the overall plan, we have our plans for our subcontractors. We have our plan for our plumber. We have our plan for our electrician, and taking the time, to make those, I think is imperative. I agree with you entirely.
So, and if you feel a little bit overwhelmed by this, just, they say you eat an elephant one bite at a time, but I think most of us still feel overwhelmed because it still looks like an elephant. The analogy that I like better is the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. You can start here. You can learn how to make phone calls. Then you can figure out how to do a newsletter. Then you really can, one step at a time, figure this out. So you need to have patience with yourself. You need to give yourself some grace. And then you need to have belief in work, right? It's kind of like getting in shape. if anybody's ever watched The Biggest Loser, and you look at somebody who is so massively out of shape and so unhealthy, and you see the transformation, it was an amazing amount of work, and maybe that's scary to you to have that much work. But when we're in a career where we could earn as much as a doctor or a lawyer, but we didn't go to 4, 7, 12 years of schooling.
Right.
My mom says, thank your clients for your free education. I mean, you're learning on the ground, right? So I'd say just embrace the work and do it one at a time, and you got this. Yeah,
and find the support of an accountability partner, right? Work on this together. There's nothing wrong with that. But, everybody, so we've been showing, you have a marketing calendar for your sphere. I've been showing one. Everybody's like, can I get that? Can I, everybody is very enamored with these plans. But then, it's the follow-up. Okay, great. So you've seen examples.
Yeah. Yours?
Where's yours? Right? Because, I mean, how many people out there wanted to send Thanksgiving cards this year and even bought them? Well, they're going to go out next year. I had people tell me that. I ran out of time, right? I really wanted to do the pumpkin pop buys. Oh, we'll do that next year. You can't use the pumpkins that you bought, right? But you can use, you can reuse the cards. But if you have that calendar that you and I have talked about, and I think we have examples on Dominate, right? Mm-hmm. What's coming. Okay, in October, I plan to do the pumpkin pop buy for my top 20 people. So I know that I need to buy the pumpkins the first week of October. That way it's not Halloween. You're like, I really wanted to do pumpkins, or it's not Thanksgiving and I really wanted to do pies. So I think that there's so many agents that are reactive of, this holiday's coming, I want to do this or that. And then they run out of time because they're busy.
Yes.
So it all comes down to that planning, right?
Seemingly busy. I have a coaching client who she came to my coaching schedule having closed 36 transactions the year before, and she seemed almost bored. She didn't want to hire an assistant, and she didn't want to grow a team. And I really wasn't sure what the heck we were going to do with her.
Yeah.
At this point, she has a part-time assistant, and her husband joined her, and they did 72 deals, and she's bored again. She's extremely organized.
Right.
She makes real estate look like the easiest job ever. So we're giving her bigger challenges. We're spicing it up for her. But I only use her as an example because it is possible.
Yep.
It is possible to do a lot of transactions and have happy clients who give you strong referrals.
Well, and
new challenges.
We know that most agents are disorganized, right? The best salespeople, they like talking to people. They're messy, right? Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. But what would an agent have to do if they were an employee? What if this was a job where you and an employee and your boss said you need to do these activities, right? So there's lots of salespeople that work as employees.
Yeah.
Many different companies have salespeople as employees,
sure.
Right? Real estate is kind of an anomaly where we're independent contractors. Well, what if we weren't? What if this were a 9-to-5 job? What if we had to go and we had to prospect in the morning, we had appointments in the afternoon, right? We had to hit metrics, like maybe you're selling copiers for IBM,
sure.
or you're a huge account person for HP, working giant commercial accounts. Right, you're not just rolling the dice every day, right? You have activities that you're going to do,
right?
And you're going to be accountable to your boss, and you get bonuses and stuff, right? But maybe that's a topic for a future show. If you were an employee, what would you be doing different?
Sure. Yeah, and if you were the boss, what would you be doing different? And then maybe, like you and I heard that guy speak who wrote the book Alter Ego Effect.
Yes.
Maybe you don't wear glasses, but you put on your fake glasses and you pretend now I'm the CEO. Today's my CEO moment.
Yep.
How am I going to be the boss of these people?
Yep.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe you could have a hat.
That book should be read by, probably everybody in every new person to sales, maybe every college kid, everybody that's new to a job that they find intimidating.
Sure.
I don't know. Okay.
All right. So parting shots, review your plan until it's familiar. If it doesn't make sense to you, change it. Okay. Then plan your week. You said Sunday or Monday. Plan your week ahead. If you don't know what to plan, that means your plan doesn't have much specificity in it. And it's time to look at those sources of business and grow the actions underneath. If you were to, I say, like, if you were leaving lesson plans for another teacher, you'd have to be clear. So you
Yep.
can't just say,
Right.
teach the kids. There's 28 of them. Those are not instructions, right?
Yep.
It's not clear enough. And those are often the instructions we leave to ourselves. So be super clear and then plan. Look ahead to next month's activities. Your example was so perfect. Here comes holidays. Here's whatever. It's September. I'm reviewing my plan the last week in September, and I totally know what initiatives I have to hit for.
Right.
So yeah, and give yourself some grace. Know that this habit can grow, but nothing, you never get strong if you do 2 reps. You've really got to stick with this a while.
I like it. Let's leave it there. Always good to see you, Amy. Back over to Eyerusalem.
Thank you so much for watching. And as always, we're here to make your real estate career better.
Take care, everybody.